All right, everybody. Coming back at you with another little video here. So point blank, I got these two trucks. I started out with the Sledge. I ended up with this Kraton EXB, both 6S vehicles, and primarily it was just so I could do a comparison for myself. I'm not, some people may accuse me of being a Traxxas fanboy. Some people may accuse me of being an Arrma fanboy. But the reality of it was I'm going to say it point blank. These are two phenomenal vehicles. You can't go wrong with either one. I'm just going to kind of do a bit of a deep dive into both of them. Go further into the pros and cons from a previous video I had done, and I'm basically gonna decide. Better is a very subjective term. I don't think one of these trucks is better than the other, but I do think one has a better value than the other. And when I come down to the end of it, I'll just kind of go into which one I think is the better value. Because right off the bat, what I will say is this truck, the Kraton, is definitely the more powerful of the truck and the faster of the two. Their advertised claim of 65 plus miles per hour, I believe it is. It ain't that far off. Other people have done videos of it. I've actually had somebody with a radar gun shoot this thing, and yes, it does. It's not quite 65, but it's close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades. I mean, it's 64 and some change is what I was able to get this thing up to. That being said, I do feel like this vehicle is the better handling of the two. It holds the ground better. I've covered that in previous videos. Nonetheless, I'm not going to go into it any further. This is more of a deep dive of pros and cons of each thing. I'm going to kind of pick apart each vehicle and feel what I think is better on each vehicle, on a particular vehicle. And so with that said, here we go. So first off, I'm going to go into kind of slide them over here. I'm going to go into the ESCs and the motors on these respective vehicles. I do feel of the two, I do feel like the motor on the Traxxas is better, if nothing else, for the smoothness of it. I feel like the power delivery and the smoothness of this vehicle, hands down, goes to the Traxxas. That said, I love the programmability options that you have with the Arrma ESC. And so, in a nutshell, what I'm going to say is the Traxxas vehicle. I know people have had issues with overheating on this Traxxas ESC. I haven't encountered that. I haven't encountered it ever go down on a thermal shutdown. I live in South Louisiana. It gets fucking hot down here. That said, I have not had an overheating issue with this. However, I have, according to my telemetry on my DX3C, on my DX6C that I have bound to this vehicle, the ESC has hit 175, 178 plus. It does get hot down here. The cooling fans do help, but this vehicle does have that ESC does get hot. Right after, and this is just hard running. This is not jumping it, getting it airborne. This is just basically speed runs and maybe a slight run through some short grass. So that is a bit concerning to me. But that said, I do feel like the better combination of motor and speed control definitely goes to the Kraton. Because I love a programmable ESC. I like being able to adjust things like, I like a little bit of drag brake on my vehicles, because I do a lot of speed runs. I do run through fields. I don't really get this thing airborne. And so I don't need air control with this vehicle. So I do like to set in a little bit of drag brake. I like the fact that it has an adjustable BEC and you can power that servo that's in here at 7.4 volts. I do like the little push button on here. I like the fact that you can alter these parameters without a programming card. I do have the optional programming card because I'm lazy and it's just that much easier. That being said, like I said, motor combination, everything else, and then overall too, I do like the mesh setup. The two screws right here. I know people have had issues when you jump it and everything else. They'll loosen up and the motor will shift over. I do feel like the Traxxas mount is more secure. I do have the little spacers that hold in place it, so the bolt, if the bolts do loosen up, it's not shifting. It's not going to move back and forth. So that mesh is in there. But that said, I do not like the motor mount and the set because you have limitations. You can only use a certain size motor, blah, 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 blah. For reasons that people have stated in other videos that are out there. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I like this motor better. I like that ESC better. And combination-wise, I like the motor and speed control setup and the motor mount setup on this vehicle better. So, servo-wise, I do feel like of the two, yes, the Kraton is definitely has the faster servo, but that's also because it's running at 7.4 volts as opposed to the 6 volts on this one. That being said, if this runs at 7.4 volts, it is faster and it is stronger than the Spectrum ESC on the Kraton. So with that, I'm going to give the nod to the Traxxas, to the Sledge's servo, simply because of the fact I've used these Traxxas servos. I have one in this. I have one of their 600 inch-pound or inch-ounce servos in this TRX4. Traxxas makes a good servo. I don't know. I can't speak to anybody else in this, but I have had great success with Traxxas servos. Spectrum servos. It's iffy. The only thing that I've had issue with on this Kraton is sometimes it doesn't want to return to center. It doesn't hang up and everything else. I do have the endpoints set on it. I mean, I've done the legwork on it. But that being said, servo for servo, my preference is the Traxxas servo. Moving on, suspension. This is where the Kraton really shines, because I do feel like the Traxxas one, it has the plushier suspension. It does hold the road better, but I like the adjustability that the Kraton offers. I like having the adjustable links in the rear. I like having the adjustable toe links right here because I like dialing up a suspension. I like adding a little bit of camber, a little bit of negative camber to the rear, just a slight bit. I like adding a little bit of toe in and taking the tires and towing them in because it gives me a better feel. It doesn't want to wander back and forth. It holds a line and it goes. And with this vehicle, you need it. So that's where and then not just that and anything else, but shock wise, there again, the Arrma just completely outshines the Sledge in that regard. Yes, the Kraton does have smaller shocks, but the fact is they have aluminum shock caps. They have these little bleed screws, which makes bleeding these things a piece of cake. They have these little shock shaft covers, so you literally do not have to worry about getting trash on these shock shafts. And then you have these aluminum adjustable collars as opposed to all of that being plastic. Yes, you can get aluminum options. You can get aluminum shock caps, but it's an option part. It doesn't come with the vehicle like it does with the Arrma. And that's going to be a theme you're going to see throughout this review. So moving on, some of the you have these machined diff housings. I like that. That's that's definitely a good thing, because if you're any kind of a mechanic or anything like with plastic, it heats up, it gets distorted, and you can actually potentially lose a little bit of backlash on your gear set, potentially destroy a gear set prematurely. I do favor the Arrma in regards to the differential housings. However, internally, the differentials, the Sledge has it beat by a long shot. And I'm going to get into a little bit deeper on why. Other people have posted videos about it. The Sledge has the differentials themselves are physically bigger by a long shot on the Sledge. That being said, the Arrmas, because they're spiral cut, you have a greater contact patch on the Arrmas. So in essence, they kind of almost cancel each other out in that regard. Yes, you have a lot more beef on the Sledge, which is why they hold up a lot better from what I hear than the ones on the Kraton. because they are physically smaller by quite a bit. That said, the spiral cut does help with the strength on the Kraton. So, but that being said, just the sheer size and everything, the robustness, differential wise, and even the center diff, Sledge all the way. And so, I mean, things like the shock towers, that's equal. The chassis plate, yes, the chassis plate on the Kraton EXB. It's, I mean, on the Kraton, it's a 7075 aluminum chassis. That's just pretty much that's pretty much a wash. You have some other little things like right here. This is aluminum on the Kraton EXB, as opposed to where this is plastic on the Sledge. And so all of those things, I mean, strength-wise, I haven't seen a huge difference. The chassis plate wiseness, I do like the green anodization on the Sledge, but that's just a personal preference thing. So here's my main complaint with the Sledge versus the Kraton, and that is a lot of the option parts for the Sledge, like these these upper links on the front, the toe links, the rear toe links. And even this, just something as simple as a front bumper, these sway bars, all of that is optional. It's optional stuff. Even the cooling fan for this motor, it's all optional stuff that I have added to the Sledge. That is from the factory, out the box, on this Kraton. And I understand, yes, this Kraton is an EXB model. It's their top of the line model. But here's the thing, folks. That's an $820 vehicle. This is an $800 vehicle. And so that's where I'm going to come into. I've driven both of these vehicles extensively, run several packs through them. They both drive phenomenally well, but that's where, in my opinion, it's not, and this is not necessarily a better comparison, because they both drive phenomenally well. I can't pick a winner as far as which truck is better. They both drive great. If anything, I find the Sledge drives a bit better, but the Kraton is faster. I like the fact that the belted tires on the Sledge, I've heard people complain about them, but the belted tires help this thing hold the road great. That's one of my main issues with the Kraton. And that said, if you put belted tires on this Kraton, get ready. That ESC is gonna run hot even faster. This thing does not like belted tires at all. I've backed off the timing. I don't run lower timing than what it has stock. I've added in some drag brake to it. I've turned down the punch control, because that's the other thing, is this thing likes to do wheel stands. And sorry, Arrma, but I'm gonna dog you here. Please bring the wheelie bar back for this thing, because this thing needs it. For the love of God, it needs a wheelie bar. But enough about the complaints on each of these vehicles. Enough of the hating on each of these vehicles, because I love them both. They are my favorite fast vehicles that I have in my collection. That said, what I am gonna say here, because there's a clear-cut winner in this, is value-wise, that is definitely the better value for your money. And like I said, it's because of a lot of these option parts for this Sledge are included with the Kraton. Just things like you have the better shock towers, but you have the aluminum shock caps. You have these aluminum adjustable nuts for the shocks. You have these little shock shaft guards, which you can't even get for this vehicle. The only thing that's really an optional part for this Kraton that comes with the Sledge is these little stick stoppers, which they help. I'm not gonna knock it. They help, but for everything else I've had to add to it. I guarantee you, the sway bars, that bumper was about $20-$25. The sway bar kit was about, I believe, $30 or $40. This cooling fan was about $20. So 20, 40, that's 60. Another 25, that's $85. And then I added on the wheelie bar to the back, but I'm not including that because, there again, that one doesn't have a wheelie bar either. And then I haven't even added the adjustable knuckles on here, the adjustable toe links and the adjustable camber links on this thing yet. That in and of itself is another. If we're going to do a comparison to that, to put this vehicle to that vehicle specs, that's another $70. So that's $155 you're having to spend on an $800 vehicle already. So that's a $1,000 vehicle in essence, compared to the $820 that you have for this vehicle out the box. Yes, it doesn't have belted tires. There's a reason for that. Don't put belted tires on this thing, simply because of the fact that it doesn't like them. You're probably going to incur excessive wear on your differentials, but most definitely you're going to put excessive pressure on that motor. That motor is going to run hotter. That ESC is going to run hotter because it's going to be delivering that much more current, and that motor is going to struggle that much harder. It's going to cause everything to heat up more. Just don't do it. If you want this thing to run efficiently, like it does out the box, leave it as it is. But the only improvement you can really make to this vehicle is, like I said, add a wheelie bar to it, and probably a better servo, which is going to be coming somewhere down the line. Just something that's a little bit higher torque, and that's really about it. The steering servo itself is responsive. It doesn't necessarily need a faster servo, but it could use a stronger one. But so there it is, everybody. In a nutshell, the better value of these two vehicles is the Arrma Kraton. Is there one better than the other? No. But is one a better value? Most definitely. So hope that helps you guys. Y'all have fun out there, and as always, happy RCing, everybody.